Okay, so in the last episode, we sprayed on this sunburst finish onto the guitar, and I am absolutely thoroughly in love with it. I think it's gone on really, really nicely. The more I look at it, the more I appreciate it. I know when I put it on, I was saying that I was only going to put a very thin band of black around some parts of it, and that I have in fact ended up going around the whole thing with a fairly substantial black band. What happened there is what quite often happens in these situations. You start with an idea in your head, and then as it develops, it kind of takes on a life of its own and turns into something else. And I think the case here was I started to put the black on and thought, this is actually going to look better on more of the outline than less. So I just carried on and did the whole thing in the end. And I think it really works very well. It just adds that kind of contrast and definition onto the top, and I think it looks beautiful. Others might disagree, but the whole thing's subjective, isn't it? So there's no right or wrong. However, there is one final touch that I need to make to this, and that is I need to scrape the bindings on both the F-holes, which I'm not looking forward to because I think it's going to be a little bit of a nightmare, and the perimeter of the body, which is something I've done a number of times before and doesn't really faze me that much. So that's going to be the first part of this. There is also some additional bits that I've forgotten to do, or I've just decided that I am going to do. Firstly, I haven't drilled a ground for the bridge, which is silly and it's on me, but hopefully it won't be a massive deal. There is only a very short distance to drill between the top and this cavity, so hopefully that will go okay. I forgot to put the mounting holes in for the pickup. That should be straightforward and quite easy to do. And then the last bit is these little holes that I developed when I cut the pickup pocket. They don't really do anything, they don't cause a problem, but I don't like them. So I'm going to see if I can stick some little blocks inside the body against there just to kind of close those up a little bit and make it look a little bit more like it was meant to be like that. Having done all that, we can then move on to the next stage of this, which is to get a load of clear coat shot onto this. But first things first, we need to get these bindings scraped. And at least for the perimeter, I'm just going to use a craft knife blade, utility knife blade. You can make special tools for this, you can do all sorts of stuff, but I've always found that these work really, really well. I like them because you can kind of get a good pinch onto them and just kind of limit how much of this you're going to scrape off. So I'll get my big eyes on, we'll get you in a little bit closer, and we'll start to get these bindings done. And the way I've always done these is that I kind of pinch just a little bit of the blade that kind of matches the thickness of the binding, and then I'll run my thumbnail around the perimeter of the guitar and simultaneously kind of scrape into the binding like that. And then once I've established that inner line, I can work my way back. And scrape the rest of it. However, someone suggested an alternative method, and that is to kind of start at the outside and then just slowly drop your blade until you get to the correct angle to get back to the edge of the binding, and I think that seems to work quite well. And I actually think just that little bit scraped off really, really changes the look of the body. I think that looks really, really good. So I'm going to carry on. I'm going to try and do as much as I can that way. And see how I get on. And that's the perimeter done, and I think that's looking quite nice. So I'm going to start and try and get these F-holes done, and I'm just going to do exactly the same thing here. I'm going to start a fairly steep angle. And then just flatten that back. Until I get it something like. I might just have to kind of go in a little bit with the point of the blade right in the corners, but I think at least on those straight bits, that's making a really nice job of it. So I think that's looking really, really good. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to get these round bits, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to them. And I've been cracking on with this off camera and got all of the perimeter done and this bottom F-hole as well. The F-holes are actually taking absolutely ages, but what I've done is I've just squared off the end of this blade, and I'm using that to just very carefully kind of scrape away at this. Which is slowly but surely getting it done. Obviously, these bits are quite straightforward. Just start to take the corner off and then angle your blade back until you're at the right place. And then once I've done that, I've just got this tiny little stick with some sandpaper on, and I'm just sanding the inner face of there because I've found that that's the easiest way to do that. I'm going to continue now off camera and get the rest of this done because it is taking a long time and I wouldn't want to put you through all of that. And that's all the bindings scraped off. Took an absolute age to do those, but I'm very happy with the way they look. Feast your eyes on the bound F-holes because this is probably the last time you'll see any from me. They were an absolute pain to get sorted out, so I'm not entirely convinced I'd ever do something like that again. But on the whole, I'm absolutely stoked with the way that this looks. So next up is we need to deal with the issue of the ground wire under the bridge and also these little holes in the pickup route. And I've kind of forged ahead off camera a little bit, and I've made up these two little blocks that I'm just going to insert inside the body and glue in position. Now, you'd be right in suspecting that there's absolutely no way on earth I can get any clamps or anything in there to hold them. So what I intend to do is I'll put some tight bond on most of it, but then I'll also put a few little dobs of super glue on in strategic places, and hopefully that will hold it in position well enough until the actual tight bond dries. So I'll bring you in a little bit closer and we can make a start on doing that. And I'm probably not going to need a huge amount of glue for this. And then I'm just going to put a couple of little dobs in there. This is going to be a little bit of a tricky job, but we'll drop it into the F-hole and just kind of finagle it around with my finger into position. Hopefully I can hold it there long enough and with enough pressure for the super glue to form a bit of a bond, which I appear to have done, which is good. So that's one. We'll turn it around and get the other one done. And as you can see, I've already drilled a hole through there. Kind of sums my life up a little bit at times. Blocking up one hole and then having to drill a hole in what I've just blocked up. But I think it will make this look a lot better. It's at times like this you wish you were best friends with ET. Okay, so they seem to be in place, and I'll just leave them for an hour or so for the glue to dry up before we do anything else, except that is for drilling that ground wire hole. I'm just going to protect this with a bit of masking tape. Potentially I could go one of two ways here. I could kind of drill that way into the pickup pocket and route the wires through there, but I actually think that's going to be a longer distance than through into this way. So I can see where the edge of my bridge is going to be. Got a nice long series drill bit. Let's drill in a little bit. I'm actually going to swap out for a slightly smaller one, which will still get me what I need. And that's all going to be absolutely fine. So a little bit of a nerve-wracking job that, but we've gone okay with it, which is brilliant. I'll just have a quick check. No holes in the back, brilliant. That hole, however, does look a little bit raw, so I've just got a little bit of the lacquer I used on the burst on a cotton bud. I'm just going to just colour that up, just to blend it in a little bit, even though it is going to go under the bridge. Okay, next up, fit the pickup. And this is going to be very straightforward. I've already marked where I need to drill, so and then we can just trial fit this before we go any further. Not forgetting those little bits of foam. We'll just chuck a couple more bits on just to see what that's all going to look like when it's put together. And I think the answer to that question is it's going to look very nice. So I'm really happy with that. Just give that a bit of a tweak to straighten it up. But I think that all works really, really well. So next up is we need to take all that out again, and we need to just do a little tiny bit of preparation work and get this ready for its first coats of clear. Before I do that though, I just want to pick up on a few things that have come up in the comments in the last couple of weeks. Firstly, a massive thanks to James for the super thanks donation that he made. That will come in very handy. Thank you very much. And in his comment, he raised a couple of points. Firstly, do I ever think about selling my guitars? Because surely I've got enough now for a private collection. To be honest, it's not really about selling them. Making guitars is my hobby, and I always felt that if I was kind of doing it for money, or if money was involved in any way, that would kind of change the relationship a little bit. Clearly I do make a little bit of money out of YouTube, but realistically that just helps finance my hobby and helps me spread the knowledge that I've gained over the years to a wider audience, and hopefully make our hobby a little bit more mainstream. But the other point he raised, and I think this is quite interesting, is why don't I start a Patreon account? Now, this is something I have thought about in the past. However, I've always struggled with what I'd want to put on there. And I feel that if I was going to do it, it'd have to be good value for money. So can you drop in the comments what you'd like to see in a Patreon account if I were to do such a thing? A lot of people said that they'd like to see me do pickup winding and make a pickup winding machine. And there was a few kind of suggestions of how I might go about it entered into the comments. That is something I'm going to look into. Got a couple of builds on at the moment, but I think I'll start researching that and gathering materials so we can do that before too much longer. And the third point that was raised quite a lot in the last episode was the amount of people that really like the way I've gone about this burst and the results that I've got. And I have to say, I'm very happy with it myself too. Anyway, let's get some clear coat sprayed on. Okay, and I've moved a little bit again off camera and I've got everything I need to do done to this now. So it's time to start laying down some clear coat. This is going to be a very long job. There's a lot of coats need to go on this and they'll have to be done over the course of a few days. But it's always been my experience with these things that you haven't seen the burst until you get the first clear coats on. So I think this is going to be one of those moments where hopefully it all comes to life and looks absolutely beautiful. All right, let's get going. Okay, and there's the first clear coats on. I don't know if this is going to pick up in the camera, but it looks absolutely lush. I am extremely happy with that. So I'm going to let that cure up for a little while, a couple of hours maybe, and then we'll come back and gradually start to add a load more. But this is going to be quite a long job, probably take a few days to do, so I'm going to leave this episode here. I'll be back in a couple of days' time when we can start to work on that neck again. Until then, don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.